Okay. Today's video is going to be on the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and in a sense, considering why we have black Americans voting Democrats. I want to review why I think the problem that the black Americans have in this country and something for them to consider. The difference is that America was founded as a republic, okay? And in that republic, we had a constitution. In the Constitution, Article 4, Section 4 makes very clear that every state in the Union of America has to be a Republican form of government. And there's a reason for that. Because in America, we did not want to have a majority rule. Because a majority rule can become, dominant. Like you take, for instance, like we have our electoral college. And I want to just go and take a look at something in relation to that a friend of mine has done on online, where he points out about what is the difference between the electoral college, why it works so well in our country, and what we have to consider with it. So let's take a look at that real quick. He states here, as you can see, how it breaks down. I'm hoping everyone can see this pretty clear. He says, for all people who fell asleep in civics class and want to put a stop to the Electoral College, there were 3,141 counties in the United States. Trump won 2,626 of them. Clinton won 487. This is the facts of the Electoral College. He's right on that. Okay. There were 62 counties in New York City. Trump won 46 of them. Clinton won 16. Clinton won the popular vote by approximately 1.5 million votes. In the 5 counties that encompass New York City, Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Richmond, and Queens, Clinton received well over 2 million more votes than Trump. Clinton only won 4 of these counties. Trump won Richmond. Therefore, these 5 counties alone more than accounted for Clinton's winning the popular vote of the entire country. These 5 counties comprise of 319 square miles. The United States is comprised of 3,779,000 square miles. When you have a country that encompasses almost 4 million square miles, a territory, it would be ludicrous to even suggest that the vote of those who inhabit a mere 319 square miles should dictate the outcome of a national election. What he's saying, in a large density population, democratic cities, New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, etc., don't and shouldn't speak for the rest of the country. And this, children, is why you have an electoral college. It's a safety net so that everyone's vote counts. So what he's saying here is pretty true. And I hope everyone gets to understand what he's saying there, because this not only applies to the election, it applies to the country, and it applies to every citizen in this country under the constitutional republic of law that we have in this nation, that guarantees to every individual the equal rights, equal liberty, and equal protection of the law. Now, for the black American, I want you to consider what I'm saying and understand this. You're in the Democratic Party. Up until the 40s, the black Americans predominantly, for the majority, voted Republican and were part of the Republican Party, because Lincoln was the first Republican president. We fought the Civil War to end slavery in this country and to stop the Democratic Confederate slave states from expanding slavery and maintaining slavery in this country. And back in that time, the majority of black Americans knew that Democrats were the ones who had been enslaving them since the founding of this country. I mean, I have another video you can watch on, but just in brief, this goes back to the time with the Loyalists. They were, Britain was overruling this country up until 1776 when we claimed our independence. Britain is a democracy, a majority rule. The Loyalists in the Revolutionary War were the loyalists to Britain, and they were in favor for that of a democracy. After winning the Revolutionary War, these people were considered traitors, but eventually in time they came back in and they held on to their slave states, and they held on to state rights to maintain with slavery, while the North was abolishing slavery, because like I say, in the first state in the United States to abolish slavery was Vermont, in 1777. It didn't start in 1865. It started at the point where we declared our independence. Okay, you can watch my other video that's on that, and you can see notes even about where in the Declaration of Independence we were charging the King of Britain for what he did with slavery. Go review that video. I don't want to get off track here. But, then when we progress up to the Civil War, the Democratic Party was formed as a slave party to keep slavery legal and expand it, and to keep state rights to be able to maintain slavery and expand it. When you look at the Civil War with Jefferson Davis as their president, and mind you, these people committed treason, tried to overthrow the Free Republic of the United States, and formed their own government. And they wanted to form that government as a democracy, and they formed their own constitution. You can look this constitution up online. It exists. There's copies of it for the archives and the records of the Democratic Confederate Slave States Constitution. In that constitution, they made it where nobody could ever abolish slavery. If they would have won the war, this is how it would have been. It would have never been able to be abolished in America. And further, that if you were a black man, you could never be free. So this was the supremacy of the Democrats. And it was by majority rule. The Democrats believed that by the majority of whites, they had the right of rule. And you being black are a minority. Try to follow me here, because this is the party you're in now, a majority rule democracy. Okay, the Democratic Party rules by that, a majority rule. That's what they want. As we see now, like I just had, we had the brief on the Electoral College. They want the Electoral College, they want a majority population vote, which we can't allow that to happen. Because the nation of America, as a republic, are one people. We are one people. You, as the black American, have decided to separate yourself from that one people of the free constitutional republic of America, and you decided to go and join the Democratic Party. Now, here's what you got to consider. In the Democratic Party, which we're going to go and take a quick look at something here, just so we have something of reference for it. When you look at the Democratic Party, and you look at what democracy is, as you can see here, it states that control of an organization or group by the majority of its members. So the Democratic Party, as an elitist group of Democrat members, okay, which they make up the majority of the Democratic Party, black Americans only make up, I believe, like 11% of the population, of the voting population. And you only make up, I think, like 23% of the Democratic Party. So you're a minority in the nation with them, and you're a minority in their party with them. So if you're wondering why for 50 years now you've been crying about the suppression, crying about the hardship, crying about what you do and don't get, and all you're getting in return is weak government benefit handouts that give you the bare minimum to survive in life, the bare minimum life will afford you for free from the Democratic Party, and you get segregated into ghettos and poverty across this country under Democratic authority, because these are the same supremacists who held you down since the time of the Revolutionary War and right up through the Civil War, and still are to this day. Let us not forget that, when you, like, I understand everybody wants this party switch thing is another crock of crap, and the black American views Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ, as their hero of the civil rights era in the Democratic Party and where this supposedly party switch took place. But what you fail to see, and which I'll challenge you now as a black American, go and look this up, during even the 1965 civil rights movement, which was actually started in the 1940s by Republicans, it took all the way up until the 1960s to get it actually where it was being presented to go on to possibly becoming a reality, because the Democrats were fighting it since the 1940s when it was first suggested for stronger civil rights for the black Americans, okay, and stronger protections for them. And then even in 1965, though the Democrats played like your friends, mind you, the Civil Rights Act was filibustered by one of the most prominent and longest-standing Democratic senators, Robert Byrd, former Ku Klux Klan wizard and major recruiter for the Ku Klux Klan in Virginia, best friend to Lyndon B. Johnson. I mean, there's recordings of Lyndon B. Johnson literally telling Robert Byrd he loves him. He loves him. And that he's a brother to him. Okay? And, this guy filibustered for 75 hours, I believe it was, in the 1965 Civil Rights Act. He tried to filibuster it for 75 hours. The Democrats fought to try and stop it. And mind you, that even then, it was, though the Republican Party was a minority itself within the House and the Senate, it was still able to gather enough of the Democrats to their side to stop the filibuster and get it passed. And, you know, when you look at Lyndon B. Johnson, your so-called hero, now we know from recently released records, which if you watch my other video, there's a link to that shows the records that were found by the FBI that discloses and presents the fact of truth that Lyndon B. Johnson himself was a Ku Klux Klan member in Texas. So, I mean, you people got to wake up here. You got to wake up. This is now, and in modern time, in this time, this is Robert Byrd, okay, was the man Hillary Clinton called her mentor and hero. Bill Clinton tried to defend him on his Klan association, called it a fleeting experience, like it was a short, brief thing that happened. This guy was a grand wizard and a major recruiter for them. You don't rise to those ranks in a fleeting time period, okay? You got to wake up here. But like I'm saying, for 50 years now, you've been wondering why you're not getting nowhere. Like I said, because this is the main point of what I'm trying to make for black Americans to understand that are in the Democratic Party. You're a minority in the nation. You're a minority in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party rules by that of a majority rule. The majority of the Democratic Party are superiorist white people who see you and wanted you throughout all of our history to be slaves. Okay? These people, in truth, don't like you. Never did like you. Okay? And then when you look today, the other surprising thing of evidence that supports this is when you say, well, who are their allies today? Who are their allies all through history? When you look at the biggest slave provider, watch my other video, it covers these things. The biggest slave providers to the newfound continent, the majority of black slaves were being brought in by the King of Britain. And he was sending them into his appointed governors who were controlling the southern states. And it was all about money and commerce and slave labor to farm those farms. The people he appointed as his governor and elitist here in the colonies to look over those slaves, working those plantations for them to generate that revenue, were owned by the Loyalists. They were the wealthiest people in America. They became the Democrats after the Revolutionary War. They're the ones who formed the Democratic Party and then separated from the nation and went into a civil war fighting to keep you as slaves. And they resisted. After the Civil War, they formed the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, and to try and say the Ku Klux Klan wasn't founded by the Democratic Party is another idiot statement, because it was found by former Democratic Confederate soldiers, of which while at the time when Jefferson Davis was in prison for treason against the United States, upon his release after 2 years of being in prison, he appointed his head general as the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Look these things up, because this is a fact. This is a fact. Then you have the Jim Crow laws. Then you have the attempted segregation. I just don't understand what you don't see here and understand. Why are you a Democrat? Why would you do this with this history? And not to mention, too, why would you do it knowing you're a minority in a majority rule party? Every cry you give to the Democrats, everything you want, yeah, they appease you. Yeah, they entertain it. Yeah, they'll give you what they want to give you by the majority of which are white superiorist in the Democratic Party. You're going to get what they want. But everything that you cry, they're like, yeah, we're hearing you, we're hearing. But in truth, your cries fall on deaf ear. You're not the majority. Your cry is not even heard in a majority rule party. And the Democratic Party is a democracy party. It's a majority rule. You make up a very small percentage of that majority. I mean, when you look at statistics of the Democratic, like I say, the voting part of it here, if we look here, let's take a look here and just see. When you look here, you make up 11.5% in the last election of the total voting population. So you understand, you're a minority in the Democratic Party and you're a minority in the nation. Now in a Republican, we hear you, but we can't help you, because you know what? You're not with us. You reject anything that we try to do. Anything the Republican Party right now and the conservative movement trying to do to get this nation back on track to what it was established as under our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, you don't agree with. You fight us tooth and nail. And, and when you say, well, it seems like, in this white supremacy thing, there is no white supremacy in America. Again, the reason why you're not understanding, or you can be easily fooled by this, is because, again, you're a minority. The majority of people in America are white. The majority as well of white people are Republican. Okay? The only people who aren't Republican are the racist superiorists that are in the Democratic Party that are white. And they've been the same people who have been there for the whole 242 years of this country. Okay? They're a democracy. They favor democracy. Look who their allies are. They're allied with Britain, France, all the democracies in the world, and they're allied right now still with the world's leading slave nation, the Islamic States. Okay? In this very day right now, in this very time, the Islamic States, under Sharia law and the national law of these foreign totalitarian Islamic states, slavery is still allowed and practiced. In this very day right now, like I even said in my other video, they are going out and doing slave raids in South Africa, catching black African slaves and selling them in the slave markets in this very day right now in the Islamic States. But understand, it's not just a racial issue. They're also capturing up on any small area they take over where there's white Christians. Those white Christians are as well, just like they were back then in the founding times, subject to being slaves, just like they were throughout all of time with the major primary slave provider to the world. And understand, the Islamic States are the true founders of black African slavery because they invaded North Africa in 640 AD. And that's when they enslaved you. And they started the black African slave trade, and that was 1,200 years before America was even founded. Okay? This is what you don't seem to understand. You're ignorant to the truth of history. You're ignorant to the truth of facts. There was a period, which I'm going to do another video on this, and it shows where, under the Republican form of Reconstruction, where you had large black businesses going. I mean, you had black entrepreneurs that were striking oil. They owned homes. They were doctors. They were lawyers. This is what the Democrats wanted to stop. Okay, and if you look at my other video and you look at the comments from Lyndon B. Johnson in that one video, you're going to see about where he talks about giving you just enough to shut you up. Okay, and and then he mentions too that about Reconstruction all over again, and they're allies. Watch my other video and get a dose of reality for that, of who your so-called hero Lyndon B. Johnson really is. I have another video on here you can watch, but. Like I'm saying, I'm just trying to get across to the Democrats. Consider, you're a minority in the nation. You're a minority in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a majority rule party, and the majority of that party is superiorist racists that have been trying to keep you in slavery for the whole history of this country. Yeah, they're playing the role, and you're playing the sucker. You're playing the sucker, and you've been the sucker now for 50 years. Because for 50 years, things have only gotten worse and worse and worse for you. And it's not the white man's fault. It's not the Republicans' fault. It's your own fault. Because you're in a party that you choose of your own free will to be a part of, that is a majority rule party, and you're a minority. And the majority of that party, in truth, doesn't like you and wants to suppress you, and has been. Like I was in doing this video, I even thought about, when you look at the thing with like Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood and genetics, her genetics things, where she wanted to pretty much try to exterminate the race of black people. I mean, these are the people of your Democratic Party. And this is the party you're a part of. I don't know if you're aware. She literally wanted to try to extinct the black race. Okay, or at minimum control your population. Now, there's a reason they wanted to control your population, what you're not registering right now and what you don't even see is going on right now, because the majority of Planned Parenthoods and these things taking place are happening in the Democratic-controlled, poverty-stricken ghettos across this nation that house the majority of black Americans. Okay, and you're subject to that. They want to control your population and keep your race down, because you know what? They don't want you to become a majority. Because if you become a majority, you can take over the Democratic Party. Okay? So understand. And this is how it has been prior to America. This is the way the world has been. All the other nations in the world, though some claim to be republics, they're not. Like Iran claims to be a republic. Can you believe that? but they're not real true republics. They're democracies hiding and facing off, trying to present Republican as to appear like something that would be favorable. Okay, but they're not. They're democracies. And before America, there was nothing but democracies. And democracies are ruled by totalitarian rulers, kings, superior leaders, dictators, communists, Nazis. These all are fascism, all falls under democracies. Because the democracy, as the government, becomes the elite of the majority. And those among the government make the rules by that of their own majority, and you really have not much of a say whatsoever. So, I mean, you got to understand the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. And you have to reconsider these things and then reevaluate what you're thinking and ask yourself, why are you in the situation you're in? And face the reality, you're putting yourself there. You're putting yourself there. Again, like I said, you're a minority in the nation and a minority in the Democratic Party, of which is a majority rule party. And you're the minority. Do you really think they're listening to you? You're the minority. They don't hear you. No matter how hard you think or how much you think they're listening to you, they're not paying a damn bit of attention to you whatsoever. You're a minority. The majority rules. And the majority in that Democratic Party, in truth, and not even in my opinion, by fact of what we know through history, that majority of the Democratic Party in power are white superiorists who have been holding you down and didn't want to let you free from slavery at any point at time in history, and have been still are to this day playing you for a sucker. So I'm just saying, consider these things, review these things, do some research online, look at the facts, and wake up. Wake up. The Republican, when you hear that statement made by Lyndon B. Johnson, look this up, Google it. Did Lyndon B. Johnson say that, we have to give the Negroes, they're getting pretty uppity up, and we have to give them a little something, and otherwise they're allies. It'll be Reconstruction all over again, he said. Those allies were the Republicans. That's who your allies really are. You've just been duped. You've been duped and you've been falling for the dupe now for 50 years. And things are at a point right now that, if you're really in, and I know a lot of black Americans are waking up to this, a lot of black Americans, a lot of great people out there. I have one guy, I really like his site, and I want to give him a call out here real quick for anybody who wants. So Jesse Lee Peterson, great guy, great conservative. I'd like to give a plug for him. I watch his videos. I love this guy. He's so real. He puts it so real to everybody. Just amazing guy. If you haven't seen him before, you want to go and subscribe to his videos and take a listen to some of his shows. I mean, he's not 100% always agreeable with. Some call him a little ignorant sometimes and a little bossy, but whatever. But I like the guy. He shoots it straight. He keeps it real. I give a plug out to him. I'd say a lot of black Americans could probably learn a lot of real stuff about history with this guy because he knows it very well and he puts it out there like it really is. So I just wanted to give him a plug on here. I really like, Jesse Peterson. He's a really straight up guy. So I just wanted to give him a plug. And then before I close off here, because I'm going to close off real quick, I'd like to thank my friend Joel. He's an old high school friend as well. I thought he did this very well. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this in this video with everybody, but he put it very good. And I'll put a link, if I can, to this comment so if people want to review it. And I'll put links to, everything here, like with the Electoral College, the difference between, democracies and republics. I'll put some links down in the comments in the video for everybody. All these links that I used in here, you'll find them below the video in the comment section. So if you want to use them for research, you can go ahead and start there. All right, I just want to say that, and I just want to give that consideration to all the black Americans. What you're looking at right now, again, in brief, you're in the Democratic Party. Democratic Party is a majority rule party. You're a minority. You're a minority in the nation. You're a minority in the Democratic Party. The only place you're not a minority is the Republican Party, because the Republican Party does not care about the majority. Every individual is equal. We're one people, all equal, all entitled to the same constitutional rights, the same amendment rights, the same equal justice, the same liberty, and the same protection of the law under that liberty. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're one person. It doesn't matter what color you are. We're one people. Okay? And that's what we want this country to continue to be. That's what we formed this country to be, and that's what we want the end result to be. But the only thing really right now in the way of that, in honesty, is the black American that keeps staying Democrat, who wants to revert to that of a democracy rather than embrace that of individualism with the Republican Constitution of America's United States of America. I mean, you got to wake up here. You got to wake up. You're a minority in a majority rule party that hates you. Face the truth. Get real. Wake up to this. Look at the facts. Look at the history. Wake up to it. Okay? Everyone have a great night. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.